He thought the worst was over. He thought he'd settled into his fate. He was wrong. Christopher Watts, the man who annihilated his entire family in the summer of 2018, just encountered something inside those concrete walls that made him fear for his life in ways he never imagined. The Aryan Brotherhood, one of the most dangerous prison organizations in the United States. They've been watching him, studying him, waiting for the right moment. And now, they've made their move. Officials at the Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin had no choice. An emergency relocation was ordered. Heavy guard detail assigned. Complete isolation protocol activated. Every movement monitored. Every interaction documented. But here's what's sending chills down the spines of everyone familiar with the prison system. The Aryan Brotherhood doesn't care about relocation. They have connections in every facility. Eyes in every cell block. Reach that extends far beyond any single institution. Is this karma finally catching up to Christopher Watts? Or is January 2025 about to become the darkest, most dangerous chapter yet in a case that has already shocked the world? Will he survive this? Can anyone survive when the Aryan Brotherhood decides you're a target? Is it over for Christopher Watts? What I'm about to reveal to you, what I've uncovered through months of investigation, through sources inside the system, through documents that were never meant to go public. Most people will never hear about this. The mainstream media moved on. The Netflix documentaries ended. The news cycle shifted. But the story didn't stop. The consequences didn't stop. And the danger surrounding Chris Watts right now? It's more real than it's ever been. Stay with me. Because what happens next will change everything you thought you knew about this case. But before we dive into the darkness of what's happening right now, before we talk about threats and isolation and the man who caused all of this, I need to pause. I need us all to pause. Because this case, it was never about him. It should never be about him. Shanann Watts, Bella Watts, Celeste Watts, Nico Watts, the baby boy who never got to take his first breath, never got to open his eyes, never got to know love. A mother who worked hard, who loved fiercely, who posted those Facebook videos because she was proud of her family. Two little girls who played, who laughed, who sang, who trusted their father completely. An unborn son who was just weeks away from being born. 4 lives. 4 souls. For people who deserve to grow old, to experience life, to be here right now in 2025. If you're watching this right now, wherever you are in the world, I want you to take a moment with me. I want you to type Amen in the comments if you're sending protection, peace, and love to the Rzusek family. Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Rzusek, who have endured unimaginable loss with grace and dignity. Her brother Frankie, who has become a voice for his sister when she can no longer speak. Her friends who still post memories, who still celebrate her birthday, who refuse to let her be forgotten. These people wake up every single day knowing their daughter, their sister, their friend, their grandchildren are gone. Not from accident. Not from illness. From deliberate, calculated violence at the hands of someone they trusted. Type Amen right now if you're holding them in your thoughts. And I'm praying for you too. Yes, you watching this. Because cases like this, they're heavy. They weigh on your soul. They make you question humanity. They can fill you with fear, anger, sadness that's hard to shake. So I'm asking for protection over everyone watching right now. That this story doesn't darken your heart, but sharpens your awareness. That it doesn't make you paranoid, but makes you perceptive. That it doesn't steal your peace, but strengthens your resolve to protect the people you love. I'm praying that you stay safe. That you recognize warning signs. That you trust your instincts. That you speak up when something feels wrong. Type Amen if you receive that prayer. Type Amen if you're claiming protection over your own life and your family right now. Because we're about to go deep. And we need to go in with the right heart. Let's honor Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico the right way. By never forgetting their names. By never letting their story be twisted into something it's not. By keeping the focus where it belongs, on them, not on him. Now let me be completely transparent with you about what I do and why I need your support. I'm an investigative reporter. But I don't work for CNN. I don't work for NBC. I don't have a team of producers, researchers, and legal experts backing me up. I don't have unlimited resources or guaranteed access to information. Gathering information on cases like this, especially new developments inside the prison system, it's exhausting. It's expensive. And it's often incredibly frustrating. Sources go quiet when you need them most. Prison officials stop returning calls. Documents get redacted, blacked out, or denied completely. Freedom of information requests take months or get rejected. People who were willing to talk suddenly aren't. Lawyers send cease and desist letters. Doors close. I've spent hours, sometimes entire days, making phone calls that go nowhere, sending emails that never get responses, driving to locations hoping to find someone willing to talk, spending my own money on court documents, on records requests, on travel, on everything it takes to get to the truth. Why? Why do I put myself through this? Because cases like the Watts family tragedy deserve complete, thorough, honest investigation. Because the victims deserve justice. Because the public deserves truth, not just headlines. Because someone needs to keep digging when everyone else moves on to the next story. But here's the reality. The only reason I can keep doing this work, the only reason I can continue bringing you information that mainstream media won't touch or doesn't have time to pursue, is because of you. Your support. Your engagement. Your subscriptions. When you subscribe to this channel, it doesn't just help with algorithms or views or monetization. Though yes, it does help me pay for the research, the documents, the time this takes. It tells me you care. It tells me this matters. It tells me to keep going even when it gets hard. So if this case matters to you, if you want the truth about what's really happening behind those prison walls, if you want investigations that go deeper than a 5-minute news segment, hit that subscribe button right now. It directly helps me keep digging, keep investigating, keep filing those information requests, keep making those calls, keep bringing you the full story. Because what I'm about to reveal to you, the information about what's happening to Chris Watts right now, the details about the gang threats, the psychological evaluations, the letters, the reality of his daily existence. Most reporters gave up trying to find child predators, child abusers, anyone who hurt kids. They're targets. They're considered subhuman by the general population. He gained notoriety. He's famous. He's been on television, in documentaries, all over social media. That kind of attention creates resentment, creates danger. He's isolated. He's vulnerable. He doesn't have gang protection. He doesn't have connections. He's alone. So the question everyone's asking, and I mean everyone from prison experts to true crime followers to the guards who watch him every day, will he survive this? Is it over for Christopher Watts? Because here's the twist nobody saw coming. This is information that just came to light through leaked correspondence and sources inside the facility. He's been wanting to leave that prison. He's been requesting transfers for months, writing letters to prison administrators, filing appeals, trying to get moved to a different facility, maybe even a different state. Why? Reports suggest he claimed he felt unsafe, that he was experiencing threats, that the environment was becoming increasingly hostile. But now that the Aryan Brotherhood has him directly on their radar, now that they've made their presence known, does he even want to leave anymore? Or has he realized something terrifying, that staying put, staying under maximum surveillance, staying in isolation might actually be the only thing keeping him alive right now? Think about that for a second. Really think about it. The man who once controlled every detail of his life, who planned meticulously, who manipulated everyone around him, who thought he could commit the perfect crime and walk away free. He now controls absolutely nothing. He can't choose where he sleeps. He can't choose who he's near. He can't choose when he moves or eats or breathes without someone watching. Is this karma? I want you to think about that word. Karma. The idea that what you put into the universe comes back to you. That your actions have consequences. That justice, whether legal or cosmic, eventually finds you. New Year 2025 isn't looking good for Chris Watts. Can we say it's karma? Or has this been coming since August 13, 2018, the day he was arrested? Since the day he was sentenced? Since the moment he walked into that prison in Orange? Officials at Dodge Correctional made a decision. An emergency relocation. Moving him to a different unit within the facility. Assigning a heavy guard detail. Multiple officers whose only job is to keep him alive. Complete isolation protocol. No contact with general population, no group activities, no opportunities for anyone to get close. The threat was too severe to ignore. The risk of violence was too high. They had to act. But here's what chills me to the absolute core. Here's what keeps me up at night thinking about this situation. The Aryan Brotherhood doesn't care about relocation. Let me say that again for everyone who doesn't understand how deep these organizations run. The Aryan Brotherhood has been operating inside American prisons since the 1960s. They have members in nearly every major correctional facility across multiple states. They have systems of communication that bypass official channels. They have codes, signals, methods of coordination that prison officials can't fully stop. They have people everywhere, eyes everywhere, connections everywhere. If they want someone, if they've decided someone needs to be dealt with, distance means nothing. Moving units means nothing. Even moving prisons might not be enough. They have patience, they have time, and they have reach. So the question isn't just will Chris Watts survive? The question is, how long can he survive? How long can officials keep him isolated? How long before someone on the inside, whether Aryan Brotherhood or just someone looking to make a name for themselves, gets close enough? Let me paint you a picture of what Chris Watts' life looks like right now. Today, this moment, January 2025, he eats alone. Every single meal. No cafeteria. No tables with other inmates. His food is brought to his cell on a tray. He eats sitting on his bunk. Alone. He exercises alone. If he gets exercise time, and that's not guaranteed every day, it's in a small cage-like enclosure. By himself. No equipment. No interaction. Just him and concrete walls. He sleeps alone. In a cell that measures approximately 6 feet by 9 feet. That's it. That's his entire world. A concrete box barely bigger than a parking space. But here's where it gets psychologically disturbing. Letters have been leaked. Dozens of them. Written by Chris Watts over the past several months and obtained through various sources. And what these letters reveal is absolutely chilling. The light in his cell never seems to fade. Let me explain what that means. In maximum isolation, in protective custody, the lights are kept on 24 hours a day. It's a security measure. Guards need to be able to see inside the cell at all times. Cameras need clear visibility. There can be no darkness where something could happen unseen. So imagine that. No night. No darkness. No moment where you can close your eyes and forget where you are. The fluorescent light is always there, always buzzing, always reminding you that you're being watched every single second. Sleep becomes difficult. Your body's natural rhythms are disrupted. Depression deepens. Reality starts to blur. And according to these leaked letters, Chris Watts has written that he's tired. But here's what makes my stomach turn. Here's what reveals exactly who he really is, even now, even after everything. He never mentions regret for what he did. He doesn't write about Shanann. He doesn't write about the moment he wrapped his hands around her throat. He doesn't write about Bella, sweet 4-year-old Bella, who walked in and asked, "What are you doing to mommy?" He doesn't write about the fact that Bella knew what was coming. That she asked him, "Is the same thing gonna happen to me as Celeste?" She knew. A 4-year-old child knew her father was about to take her life, and she asked him about it. He doesn't write about little Cece, Celeste, who fought, who resisted, who didn't want to die. He doesn't write about Nico, the son he'll never meet, who he ended before he even began. Does being in prison, where every choice is made for him, Somehow fulfill a need to not have to make decisions anymore? What goes through the mind of someone who could say something like that? And here's another question that needs to be asked. What will his mother say now? Cindy Watts, the woman who stood by him even after he confessed, who blamed Shanann, who suggested Shanann was a bad mother, that she controlled Chris, that somehow she pushed him to this. Even after he admitted, on camera, to investigators, in court, that he did it. That he alone made these choices. That Shanann was innocent. His mother still made excuses. So what does Cindy Watts think now? Now that her son is facing threats from one of the most dangerous gangs in the American prison system? Now that he's isolated, afraid, potentially in more danger than he's ever been? Does she still think he's the victim? Does she still blame someone else? Or has reality finally broken through? According to sources, Chris Watts is now crafting a different kind of escape. Not a physical one. He knows he'll never leave those walls alive as a free man. But a psychological one. An emotional one. A narrative one. And this brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of this entire case. Something that, frankly, makes me question humanity in ways I wish I didn't have to. Women are writing to Chris Watts. Not just one woman. Not just a couple of curious people asking questions. Multiple women. Dozens of women. Women from across the country. Women of different ages, different backgrounds, different life situations. And these aren't letters of condemnation. These aren't letters telling him he's a monster. These are romance letters. Love letters. Letters calling him misunderstood. Letters saying they see the good in him. Letters saying they believe there's more to the story. Letters saying they want to support him, to understand him, to be there for him. And he's been writing back. Let that sink in for a moment. Christopher Watts, the man who strangled his pregnant wife with his bare hands, who smothered his 2 young daughters, who shoved their little bodies into oil tanks, who lied to police, who went on television begging for their safe return knowing they were already gone. This man is receiving love letters. And he's responding to them. This phenomenon is called hybristophilia. It's the attraction some people feel toward individuals who've committed serious crimes. It happens with serial offenders, with notorious criminals, with people whose names become synonymous with evil. But knowing the psychology behind it doesn't make it any less disturbing. Now, here's where this connects to the current danger he's facing. The Aryan Brotherhood? They notice everything. In prison, information is currency. Knowledge is power. Knowing who's receiving letters, who's getting visits, who has outside connections. All of that matters. Every letter that comes in is screened. Every letter that goes out is read. But beyond official channels, prisoners talk. Guards talk. Word spreads. And the Aryan Brotherhood will now notice every love letter. Every romantic correspondent. Every woman who writes to him. Every bit of attention he receives. And several women have actually gone to visit him. Let me say that again because I need you to really hear this. Multiple women have physically traveled to Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin to visit Christopher Watts in person. They've gone through the visitor application process. They've driven or flown to that location. They've sat across from him in a visitation room. These women are not there to confront him. They're not there to tell him what he did was monstrous. They're not there representing the victims. They're there because they're drawn to him. Because they believe they understand him. Because they think they can see something in him that others can't. How shocking is this? How does this happen? How does a man who committed one of the most horrific family annihilations in modern American history become admired? Become desired? Become the subject of romantic interest? What does that say about our society? About our culture? About the way we process violence and celebrity and crime? The Aryan Brotherhood notices all of this. Every visit, every letter, every moment of attention he gets from the outside world. And in prison culture, that kind of attention can make you a target in multiple ways. It creates resentment. Why does he get visitors when others don't? Why does he get letters when others are forgotten? It creates suspicion. What's being communicated? What's being planned? Is there something going on that needs to be stopped? It creates opportunity. If women are visiting, if there's outside interest, if there's any chance of publicity or money or advantage, that can be exploited. Here's the part most people overlook. The moment that could have prevented everything. Let's go back to before. Before August 2018. Before the tragedy. Before the world knew the name Chris Watts. Imagine being in Shanann's position. Put yourself in her shoes for just a moment. You're pregnant with your third child. You have 2 beautiful daughters. You're building a business. You're active on social media. You love your family openly. Your husband seems distant. Seems distracted. Seems different. Your friends notice. Your family notices. Something feels off. But he's not violent. He's not aggressive. He's just distant, cold, checked out. What do you do? Do you panic? Do you leave? Do you demand counseling? Do you trust that whatever phase this is will pass? Shanann tried. According to text messages, according to conversations with friends, according to everything we know, she tried to communicate. She tried to save her marriage. She tried to understand what was happening. And she had no idea that the man sleeping next to her, the father of her children, was capable of what he was planning. Shanann was the kind of person who texted her friends good morning, even on her worst days. She checked in. She stayed connected. She shared her life. She was real. She was human. She was imperfect like all of us. But she loved fiercely. And she trusted completely. And his friends, people who knew Chris Watts before all of this, they later admitted, in interviews, in depositions, in conversations, that something about him never felt fully right. Not in a way that screamed danger. Not in a way that suggested violence. But in a way that felt off. Too controlled. Too calm. Too perfect. No emotions. No depth. Like there was a mask, and whatever was underneath wasn't quite human. Here's something that will haunt me forever. Someone reported a concern months before this happened, but it went nowhere. A co-worker. Someone who noticed changes in his behavior. Someone who mentioned it to someone else, who maybe mentioned it to HR or to a manager or to a friend. But it didn't go anywhere. Because what could you report? That someone seemed distant? That someone seemed emotionless? That someone gave you a weird feeling? That's not enough. There was no crime. There was no threat. There was nothing concrete. And so nothing was done. The system failed them. The red flags were there. The signs were there. The pattern was forming. But we don't have systems in place to catch this. We don't have ways to intervene when someone is just off. Just wrong. Just potentially dangerous but not yet provably so. And so Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico paid the price for our collective failure to see what was right in front of us. I've been covering the Watts case for a long time now. Since the beginning, really. Since the first news reports. Since the first interrogation videos were released. Since the confessions. Since the sentencing. And I'll be honest with you, there are days when I wonder if I should keep covering it. Days when I think maybe enough has been said. Maybe it's time to move on. Maybe continuing to discuss it is just reopening wounds. But then something like this happens. A gang threat. An isolation order. New letters. New developments. And I realize, the story isn't over. The consequences aren't over. The lessons we need to learn aren't over. And if I don't tell this story, if investigators like me don't keep digging, don't keep documenting, don't keep holding up the mirror to what happened, then what? We just forget. We just move on. We just let it fade into the background like it didn't matter? That's not acceptable to me. Cases like this, they remind me why I do this work. Not for views. Not for clicks. Not for money or fame or attention. But because stories like Shanann's, like Bella's, like Cece's, like Nico's, they deserve to be told. Completely. Truthfully. Without sensationalism. But without sugarcoating either. If you're still here, and if you've made it this far, I know you are, if you're invested in understanding the full picture, not just the headlines. I see you. I appreciate you. And I'm grateful you're here. There's so much more to uncover. So much more that needs to be said. So much more that the public deserves to know. And I'm committed to bringing that to you. No matter how difficult it gets. No matter how many doors close. No matter how exhausting the research becomes. Because this matters. Truth matters. Justice matters. Memory matters. And you being here, you watching, you engaging, you caring, that matters too. This case is haunting. Not just me. Not just you. But everyone who encounters it. The Watts family tragedy has become one of those cases that transcends true crime. It's become a cultural touchstone. A reference point. A cautionary tale. And Chris Watts himself has gone from hero to zero in the most complete and public way imaginable. Think about who he appeared to be before August 2018. The neighbor who helped with yard work. The dad who posted photos with his daughters at the pumpkin patch. The husband who seemed so calm, so normal, so nice. He went to birthday parties. He attended work functions. He had friends. He had family who loved him. He was part of a community. His children called him a hero. In one of those videos Shanann posted, one that's been replayed thousands of times now, Bella talks about her daddy being her hero. A little girl, 4 years old, looking at the camera, saying her daddy is her hero. And weeks later, he took her life. How do you reconcile that? How does anyone process that level of betrayal? That level of evil masquerading as love? People still react to this case viscerally. Years later, comments flood in daily. True crime forums dissect every detail. Reddit threads analyze every piece of evidence. Facebook groups dedicated to the case have hundreds of thousands of members. His interrogation tapes have been watched millions of times. The body language analysis videos. The psychological breakdowns. The documentary footage. Everyone wants to understand. How? Why? What was he thinking? What were the signs? Could this have been prevented? It is unforgettable. And that's actually important. It should be unforgettable. Not because we're obsessed with true crime or violence or tragedy, but because cases like this teach us something crucial about human nature, about deception, about danger hiding behind normalcy. How could he? That's the question that keeps people awake at night. How could anyone do what he did? And not in a moment of rage. Not in a fit of passion. Not in an accident that spiraled out of control. But deliberately. Methodically. With planning and premeditation, and enough coldness to look at his daughters' faces and still go through with it. And yet, he did. He absolutely did. And he will be in prison forever. No parole. No second chance. No possibility of release. No redemption arc. No future outside those walls. Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty. So life without parole is the maximum sentence. And that's what he received. Multiple consecutive life sentences. He will die in prison. That's not speculation. That's not maybe. That's absolute certainty barring some kind of impossible legal miracle. This case has attracted more attention than almost any other family crime in the last decade. More than most serial cases. More than many mass events. Why? Partly because of Shanann's social media presence. The videos. The photos. The documentation of their life. It wasn't abstract. We saw them. We saw the girls. We saw what looked like happiness. And then we saw it destroyed. Partly because of Chris Watts himself. His demeanor. His interrogation. The way he sat there, seemingly so calm, saying he had no idea where his family was. The pizza he ate while worried about them. The television interviews where he begged for their return. And then the confession. The details. The horror of what actually happened. People couldn't look away. And in some ways, they shouldn't look away. Because think about how quickly a normal day can shift into tragedy. August 13th, 2018. Shanann was returning from a business trip. She was tired but happy to be coming home. Her friend dropped her off at 2 a.m. She walked into her house. And she never walked out again. One moment you're living your life. The next, everything you thought was real shatters. Everything you trusted betrays you. Everything that should have protected you destroys you. How did no one see this coming? That's the question that haunts everyone who studies this case. Because in hindsight, there were signs. There always are. His affair with Nikki Kessinger. The way he changed. The distance. The coldness. The sudden interest in his appearance. The lies. The secretiveness. Shanann knew something was wrong. Her text messages prove it. She was trying to fix it. Trying to communicate. Trying to save her marriage. But she didn't know, couldn't have known, that the man she loved was planning to eliminate her and their children so he could start a new life. Because if it could happen to Shanann, to a woman who was loved, who had friends, who shared her life openly, who seemed so connected, then how safe is anyone? That's what keeps people thinking about this case. That's what makes it resonate so deeply. It's not just about one family's tragedy. It's about the terrifying realization that you can never fully know another person. That evil can wear the mask of love. That danger can sleep beside you and you'd never know until it's too late. And now, in 2025, Chris Watts is facing consequences that go beyond his legal sentence. The Aryan Brotherhood approaching him. The threats. The isolation. The fear. Some people call it karma. Some call it justice. Some call it simply inevitable. But whatever you call it, it's real. And it's happening right now. Should he have gotten the death sentence? That's a question that still divides people passionately. Some say absolutely yes. What he did was unforgivable, premeditated, cruel beyond measure. He took 4 lives. He destroyed a family. He traumatized a community. He doesn't deserve to breathe. Others say no, life in prison is actually worse. That every single day for the rest of his life, he has to wake up and know what he did. Know that he'll never leave. Never be free. Never experience joy or comfort or peace. That death would be mercy, and he doesn't deserve mercy. Was he mentally ill? This question matters because it affects how we understand what happened and how we prevent future tragedies. Psychologists and forensic experts have analyzed Chris Watts endlessly. The evaluations. The interviews. The behavior patterns. Some say yes, he likely has narcissistic personality disorder, possibly psychopathy or sociopathy. Inability to feel genuine empathy. Lack of emotional depth. Manipulative tendencies. Detachment from consequences. Others say no, or at least, mental illness isn't an excuse. He knew right from wrong. He planned this. He tried to cover it up. He lied repeatedly. He showed consciousness of guilt. Mental illness doesn't automatically lead to violence, and being a narcissist doesn't make you a family annihilator. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. He likely had personality disorders or traits that made him capable of this. But he also made choices. He acted with intent. He knew what he was doing was wrong, and he did it anyway. What do you think? I want to know. Because these questions matter. These discussions matter. Do you think karma is real? Do you think what's happening to him now in prison is justice, or is it just violence on top of violence? Do you think he should have been sentenced to death? Or is life in prison the right punishment? Do you think mental illness played a role? Or was this just evil in its purest form? Because here's what I know for certain. The drama in prison is real. The death threats are real. The isolation is real. The danger is real. And whether you call it karma, justice, consequence, or just the inevitable result of his actions, Chris Watts is living a nightmare of his own making. And unlike his victims, he had a choice. He chose this path. Every step of the way, he made choices that led him here. Shanann didn't choose to die. Bella didn't choose to be betrayed by the person she trusted most. Celeste didn't choose to have her life stolen. Nico didn't choose to never be born. But Chris Watts chose everything. Every single moment. every decision, every action. And now he's living with the consequences. In a 6x9 concrete cell. With fluorescent lights that never turn off. With guards watching his every move. With gang members who've decided he's a target. With nowhere to run and nowhere to hide and no escape ever coming. Forever. Let me take you deeper into these letters that have been leaked. Because they reveal something absolutely chilling about who Chris Watts really is. Even now, even years later, even after everything. According to sources who have read multiple letters written by Watts over the past year, there's a pattern that emerges. A consistent theme that tells you everything you need to know about his psychology. He writes about his daily routine in detail. What time he wakes up. What he eats for breakfast. How many push-ups he does. What books he's reading. What the weather is like outside his small window. Mundane details. Normal things. As if he's just a regular person living a regular life. He never mentions what he did. He never describes the crime. He never talks about that night. August 12th into August 13th, 2018. He never writes, "I think about what I did to Sean and every day and it destroys me." He never writes, "I hear Bella's voice asking if the same thing will happen to her and I want to die." He never writes, "I took 3 innocent lives and I deserve everything that's happening to me." Instead, he writes about how difficult prison is. How the isolation affects him. How he misses simple freedoms. Going to a restaurant, driving a car, feeling the sun on his face. He writes to these women who've become romantically interested in him, and he tells them about his struggles. His challenges. How hard things are for him. It's manipulation. Pure manipulation. Even from behind bars, even with no possibility of freedom, even with nothing to gain, he's still manipulating. Still crafting a narrative. Still trying to be the victim. And these women respond. They offer sympathy, support, understanding, love. It's disturbing on a level that's hard to articulate. But here's where it gets even darker. According to leaked portions of some letters, Chris Watts has written things that suggest he's constructed a completely alternate narrative in his mind about what happened. Not denying that he did it. He can't deny that, he confessed, but reframing it. Recontextualizing it. Making it about his suffering, his mental state, his circumstances. In one leaked excerpt, he reportedly wrote something along the lines of, "People don't understand what I was going through. The pressure. The stress. The feeling of being trapped. Stop. Let's examine that. The pressure. What pressure? The pressure of having a family who loved him? Of having a wife who was building a business? Of having children who adored him? The stress. What stress? Financial stress that thousands of families deal with without committing violence? Work stress? Marriage stress? The feeling of being trapped. Trapped in what? In a life that from the outside looked happy? In a marriage he could have left? In a situation he could have communicated about, sought help for, worked through? This is how narcissistic minds work. This is how perpetrators of extreme violence rewrite their own stories. They make themselves the protagonist. They make their feelings the central focus. They make their discomfort the tragedy. The actual victims, the people who suffered, who died, who had their lives stolen, they become background characters in a story about the perpetrator's struggle. It's obscene. It's offensive. It's exactly what we should expect from someone like Chris Watts. And the Aryan Brotherhood? They're not interested in his feelings. They're not interested in his struggles. They're not interested in his narrative. They're interested in what he represents. And what he represents is something they despise. A family annihilator. A child killer. Someone who gained fame and attention for horrific acts. Someone who gets love letters while they're forgotten. That's why he's a target. Not because of some personal vendetta, but because of what he symbolizes within the prison hierarchy. And now, according to the most recent reports, The situation has escalated to the point where officials had no choice but to act. The relocation, the isolation, the constant surveillance. But here's something I've learned through my research, through talking to people who work in corrections, through understanding how these systems actually function. Isolation is protection, but it's also torture. Solitary confinement, or protective custody, which is essentially the same thing, breaks people. Psychologically, emotionally, mentally. Humans are social creatures. We need interaction. We need connection. We need stimulation beyond four concrete walls. When you remove all of that, when you put someone in a cell for 23 hours a day with minimal human contact, with no meaningful activity, with nothing but their own thoughts, it destroys the mind. Studies have shown that extended isolation causes hallucinations, paranoia, severe depression, cognitive decline, even permanent psychological damage. So Chris Watts is protected from physical harm by the Aryan Brotherhood. But he's being psychologically destroyed by the very measures meant to keep him alive. Is that justice? Is that karma? Is that appropriate punishment for what he did? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But I know it's happening. Right now. Every day. Every hour. And he'll live like this, or survive like this, for the rest of his natural life. Decades. Possibly 40, 50 years depending on his health and lifespan. Think about that. Think about existing in that state for 40 years. Would you wish that on your worst enemy? Would you wish that on someone who hurt your family? These are uncomfortable questions. But they're important questions. Because justice isn't simple. Punishment isn't simple. The line between consequences and cruelty isn't always clear. What I can tell you is this. Chris Watts made choices that led him here. And those choices destroyed 4 innocent people who made no choice at all. Shanann didn't choose her fate. Bella didn't choose hers. Cece didn't choose hers. Nico didn't choose his. But Chris chose. Every step of the way. And now he's living in the reality he created. I need to ask you something. And I'm asking because I genuinely want to know. Because your perspective matters. Because these conversations are how we process these tragedies and hopefully prevent future ones. What do you think happens next? Do you think the Aryan Brotherhood will back off? Do you think the relocation and isolation will actually protect him long-term? Do you think he's capable of genuine remorse? Or is everything he does manipulation? And here's a harder question. Do you think he deserves protection? Should officials be going to these lengths to keep him safe? Or should they let prison justice take its course? I'm not asking you to condone violence. I'm not asking you to wish harm on anyone. I'm asking you to think about these ethical questions that don't have easy answers. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Let's have this conversation. Because this isn't just about Chris Watts. This is about how we as a society handle extreme evil. How we balance punishment with humanity. How we reconcile our desire for justice with our principles about human rights. These conversations matter. Your voice matters. And if you found value in this investigation, if you learned something new, if it made you think differently, if it reminded you to pay attention to warning signs in your own life, I want to ask you to do something. Share this video. Send it to someone who followed this case. Send it to someone who's interested in true crime. Send it to someone who needs to understand that danger can hide behind normalcy. Not for me. Not for views or algorithm or any of that. For Shanann. For Bella. For Cece. For Nico. So their story continues to matter. So their names aren't forgotten. So the warning their tragedy offers continues to be heard. And here's the thing about this work I do, about investigative reporting on cases like this. Every share, every comment, every subscription, it tells me this matters to people. Tells me to keep digging. It tells me the truth is worth pursuing even when it's difficult. So if you believe in what we're doing here, if you believe these stories need to be told completely and honestly, help me keep doing it. Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on notifications so you don't miss updates. Engage in the comments. We're building something here. A community of people who care about truth, who care about victims, who care about understanding these tragedies so we can prevent them. Be part of that. Be part of something that matters. Let's talk about the ripple effects of what Chris Watts did. Because the impact didn't stop with 4 deaths. It spread outward like a wave, touching hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of lives. Shanann's family. Frank and Sandra Zusek. Her brother Frankie. These people have to wake up every single day knowing their daughter and grandchildren were taken from them by the person who was supposed to protect them. By family. By someone they trusted. Someone they welcomed into their lives. The grief doesn't end. It doesn't fade. It doesn't get easier with time. It just changes shape. They've handled themselves with extraordinary dignity. They've spoken publicly, but carefully. They've honored Shanann, Bella, and Cece by keeping their memories alive without sensationalizing the tragedy. But can you imagine their pain? Can you imagine holidays without them? Birthdays without them? Every milestone that should have happened but won't? Bella would be 11 years old now in 2025. Think about that. She'd be in middle school. She'd be discovering who she is, what she loves, who her friends are. Cece would be 9. Elementary school. Learning, growing, becoming. Nico would be 6 years old. In kindergarten or 1st grade. Shanann would be watching him grow, seeing what kind of person he'd become. All of that was stolen. All of those futures. All of those moments. All of that potential. Gone. Because of one person's choices. But it doesn't stop there. Shanann's friends. The women who loved her. Who supported her. Who were in her life daily. They carry this trauma too. One of her best friends was the last person to see her alive. The friend who dropped her off at 2 a.m. after the business trip. Can you imagine living with that? Knowing you were the last person to see your friend alive? Replaying that moment over and over. Wondering if you should have sensed something, done something, said something? The neighbors. The community in Frederick, Colorado, where the Watts family lived. These are people who saw them regularly. Who waved hello. Who let their kids play together. Who thought the Watts family was just like them. Normal, happy, safe. And then they learned the truth. That horror had been living right next door. That evil had been hiding behind smiles and friendly conversations. How do you trust your judgment after that? How do you feel safe in your own neighborhood when you know that someone who seemed so normal was capable of that? The co-workers at Anadarko Petroleum where Chris worked. People who worked alongside him every day. Who ate lunch with him. Who thought they knew him. One of those co-workers, Nikki Kessinger, was having an affair with him. She thought she was falling in love. She thought he was leaving his wife. She had no idea she was part of the motive for triple, quadruple, family annihilation. Imagine being Nikki Kessinger. Whatever you think of her role in this, whatever judgment you have about the affair, imagine finding out that the man you were involved with did what Chris did. She's changed her name. Gone into hiding. Lives in fear of public recognition and backlash. Her life was destroyed too, in a different way. The law enforcement officers who responded, who found the bodies, who had to investigate this scene, who had to see what was done to those little girls. First responders carry trauma from their work. They see things that haunt them. This case has been described by investigators as one of the worst they've ever handled. Because it wasn't just violence. It was betrayal at the deepest level. It was a father killing his children. A husband killing his pregnant wife. It violated something fundamental about human bonds. The FBI agent who interviewed Chris Watts, Tammy Lee, you can see in the interrogation footage how she's struggling with her emotions. How she's trying to stay professional while confronting pure evil. How she's thinking about her own family, her own children. These people carry this case with them forever. And then there's the broader impact. The societal impact. This case changed how people think about family annihilators. It brought attention to a phenomenon that happens more often than most people realize. According to research, family annihilation, when one family member kills multiple other family members, happens in the United States approximately once every 5 days. Once every 5 days. We just don't hear about most of them. They don't get the media attention. They don't become national news. But the Watts case did. And it opened people's eyes. It made people ask questions about their own relationships. About warning signs. About what normal looks like versus what dangerous looks like. It made people, especially women, more aware of subtle red flags. Emotional distance. Sudden changes in behavior. Secretiveness. Lack of empathy. It sparked conversations about domestic violence, about control, about narcissism, about how abuse doesn't always look like physical violence until it's too late. In that sense, maybe some good has come from this tragedy. Maybe some relationships were saved. Maybe some people recognized danger and got out before something terrible happened. Maybe some children are alive today because their mother saw something in her partner that reminded her of Chris Watts, and she trusted her instincts and left. We'll never know. We can't quantify that. But it's possible. And that's why these stories need to be told. Not to sensationalize. Not to exploit. But to educate. To warn. To honor victims by making sure their stories save other lives. Here's something else that haunts me about this case. The performance of normalcy. Chris Watts wasn't just secretly evil. He was performing being good. He was actively pretending. Posting on social media. Going to birthday parties. Playing with his kids in front of others. Being the helpful neighbor. It was all a mask. A carefully constructed facade. And that's terrifying because it means we can't always trust what we see. We can't always rely on appearances. We can't assume that because someone seems nice, they are nice. But here's the balance. We also can't become paranoid. We can't assume everyone is secretly dangerous. We can't live in fear of our partners, our neighbors, our coworkers. So what do? We pay attention. We trust our instincts. We take warning signs seriously even when they seem small. We don't explain away red flags. We don't make excuses for concerning behavior. We believe people when they show us who they are. Maya Angelou said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." Chris Watts showed people who he was. In small ways. In subtle ways. In moments that seemed insignificant at the time. His coldness. His detachment. His lack of emotional response to situations that should have triggered feelings. People noticed. They just didn't know what they were noticing. They didn't have the language for it. They didn't trust their gut feelings enough to act on them. And I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not saying his friends or family or coworkers should have known. I'm saying we as a society need to get better at recognizing these patterns and taking them seriously. We need to create space for people to voice concerns without being dismissed as dramatic or paranoid. We need to believe victims, or potential victims, when they say something feels wrong, even if they can't articulate exactly what it is. We need to take domestic violence seriously before it escalates to homicide. Because in many cases, not all, but many, there were warning signs that were missed or ignored. This case is a tragedy. An absolute, undeniable tragedy. But if we can learn from it, if we can use it to save even one life, then maybe, somehow, Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico's deaths won't have been completely in vain. That's the only comfort available. And it's not much. But it's something. We're coming to the end of this investigation, but before we close, I need to say something. If you've made it this far, and I know it's been a journey, I know this has been heavy, I know it's a lot to process. Thank you. Truly. Thank you for caring enough to listen. Thank you for honoring these victims by hearing their story completely. Thank you for being part of a community that believes truth matters. I want to ask you one more time. What do you think happens next for Chris Watts? Do you think he survives the year with the Aryan Brotherhood targeting him? Do you think prison officials can actually protect him long-term? Do you think there's any chance he develops genuine remorse? And more importantly, what do you think we should learn from this case? Leave a comment. Start a conversation. Engage with other viewers. Because these discussions are important. True crime isn't just entertainment. Though yes, it can be engaging, it can be compelling, it can draw us in. But it should also be educational. It should change how we see the world. It should make us more aware, more careful, more protective of ourselves and the people we love. If this video made you think differently about warning signs, about trusting your instincts, about taking concerns seriously, then it served its purpose. And if you believe this kind of thorough, honest, victim-centered investigative reporting is valuable, if you want to see more of this kind of content, subscribe. Be part of this community. Help me continue this work. Every subscription tells me to keep going. Every comment tells me these stories matter. Every share extends the reach of these important warnings. And turn on notifications. Because cases like this continue to develop. New information emerges. Updates happen. Just in the past month, we've learned about the Aryan Brotherhood threats, about the relocation, about the isolation protocols. Who knows what will happen next month? Next week? If you want to stay informed, if you want the full story and not just headlines, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. I'm committed to bringing you the truth. The complete truth. Not sanitized, not sensationalized, but honest and thorough. And I can only do that with your support. So thank you. For being here. For caring. For being part of something that matters. Let's keep honoring these victims. Let's keep learning from these tragedies. Let's keep working to prevent the next one. Here we are. The end of this investigation. But not the end of the story. Chris Watts is heading into 2025 with more danger surrounding him than ever before. The Aryan Brotherhood has made their presence known. Officials have taken extraordinary measures to protect him. He's living in isolation that would break most people. Is this justice? Is this karma? Is this what he deserves? I can't answer that for you. Everyone will have their own opinion. What I can tell you is this. He's alive. Shanann isn't. Bella isn't. Cece isn't. Nico never got to be. He gets to wake up tomorrow. They don't. He gets to breathe, to eat, to think, to exist. They don't. Whatever discomfort he's experiencing, whatever fear he's feeling, whatever psychological torture the isolation causes, he chose it. He chose the path that led him there. Every single step. They didn't choose anything. They were innocent. They were vulnerable. They trusted him completely. And he destroyed them. So when we talk about whether he's suffering enough, whether the punishment fits the crime, whether he deserves protection from gangs, let's remember who the real victims are. Let's keep the focus where it belongs. Not on him. On them. Shanann Marie Watts. Born January 10, 1984. Died August 13, 2018. 34 years old. Daughter. Sister. Friend. Mother. Wife. Entrepreneur. A real person with dreams and plans and a future that was stolen. Bella Marie Watts. Born December 17, 2013. Died August 13, 2018. 4 years old. Big sister. Daughter. A little girl who loved school, who was smart and sweet and trusting. Celeste Catherine Watts. Born July 17, 2015. Died August 13, 2018. 3 years old. Little sister. Daughter. A bright, energetic child full of life and joy. Nico Lee Watts. Due January 31, 2019. Killed before birth August 13, 2018. Never got to meet his family. Never got to exist outside the womb. Never got a chance. These are the names that matter. These are the lives that matter. These are the people we should remember. Not because of how they died, but because of who they were and who they should have become. Now, here's the final lesson. The warning. The thing I need you to take away from this. If someone in your life is showing warning signs, and you know what I'm talking about, sudden emotional distance, coldness where there used to be warmth, lack of empathy or emotional response, secretiveness, unexplained changes in behavior or routine, detachment from family responsibilities, controlling behavior that's escalating, making you feel crazy for noticing things that are wrong. Don't ignore them. Don't make excuses. Don't rationalize. Don't minimize. Don't wait to see if things get better. Trust your instincts. They exist for a reason. They're trying to protect you. Shanann's friends saw changes in Chris. They felt something was off. But nobody imagined this. Nobody could conceive that the friendly dad, the quiet neighbor, the calm husband was capable of what he did. We can't always predict evil. We can't always see it coming. But we can pay attention. We can take red flags seriously. We can intervene. We can leave. We can protect ourselves and our children. If you're in a relationship where something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate exactly what it is, please talk to someone. A friend. A family member. A counselor. A domestic violence hotline. Don't suffer in silence. Don't convince yourself you're overreacting. Don't stay because you're afraid of being wrong or dramatic. It's better to be wrong and safe than right and gone. I chose this case because too many people still don't know the real truth behind it. Because the story is still unfolding. Because the lessons are still relevant. But more than that, I chose this case because Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico deserve to be remembered. They deserve to have their story told with respect, with honesty, with the weight it carries. They deserve to be more than true crime subjects. They deserve to be honored as human beings whose lives mattered, whose deaths were tragic, whose memories should inspire us to be better, to do better, to protect better. So as we close this investigation, as Chris Watts faces whatever comes next behind those prison walls, as the Aryan Brotherhood continues to watch him, as officials try to keep him alive, let's not lose sight of what really matters. 4 innocent people lost their lives. A family was destroyed. A community was traumatized. And all of us who followed this case have been changed by it in some way. Let that change be positive. Let it make you more aware. Let it make you more protective. Let it make you trust your instincts. Let it make you speak up when something's wrong. Let Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico's legacy be that their story saved someone else. That their tragedy prevented another tragedy. That their deaths meant something beyond just horror and grief. This isn't entertainment. This is real life. These were real people. This is a real tragedy that continues to ripple outward every single day. We tell these stories to learn, to honor, to protect, to remember. Never forget their names. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, Nico, rest in peace. You deserved so much more. You deserved to live. You deserved to be protected. You deserved love that was real, not performed. And to everyone watching, Stay safe. Pay attention. Trust yourself. Protect your family. Don't ignore the signs. Because the life you save could be your own, or your child's, or your sister's, or your friend's. Thank you for watching this investigation. Thank you for caring. Thank you for making it all the way through. Thank you for being part of a community that believes victims matter, truth matters, and justice matters. If you learned something, if this impacted you, if you believe this message needs to be heard, share it. Tell others. Keep the conversation going. I'll see you in the next investigation. Until then, stay vigilant, stay safe, and keep honoring those who can't speak for themselves. God bless Shanann. God bless Bella. God bless Celeste. God bless Nico. And God bless you for caring enough to listen. Take care of yourselves out there.